Good afternoon, Brad. How are you?
Lovely.
You back?
How are you? How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. I just got off the growth call myself, so I'm sure a few others are as well. So we'll give it maybe a couple minutes to
Yes.
get everybody on. And this is being recorded, so we will be sending it off into our YouTube channel. Can you hear me okay, Brad?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Great.
Hey guys, Brad's going to get started in just a couple of minutes. We had another call right before this one, so we want to give everybody a minute to end the call, maybe use the restroom really quickly, grab a glass of water, and come back. So we're going to get started in just about a minute. And just to remind everybody, we are starting the new series today with Brad Knowles. It's Developing the Leader Within You, and it's a John Maxwell series. So I'm really excited to be in this journey with you guys. There's that book. If you want to write that down and maybe put it on your Amazon list. I know Amazon boxes come daily at my house, not sure at yours, but Developing the Leader Within You 2.0, by the way, 2.0.
That's right. Forget that 1.0 stuff.
No way.
That leader was a deadbeat. This is the leader you want.
That's right. All right, Brad, we're going to get started because I know it goes by really quickly. So if you want to take this away, it is being recorded, guys. So if you are missing any of it, it'll be on our YouTube channel.
Love it. Well, welcome everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Thanks so much for joining us. And yeah, to me, with everything going on, we've really spent a lot of time in our office working on leadership development. Really feel that that's a critical thing that not only do our businesses need, but more importantly, our families need it, our communities need it. If you're a person of faith, whatever faith that is, I'd be willing to bet that group needs it. There's very few situations that I observe that better leadership wouldn't help. And so to me, one of the things that we can do is we can work together as a group to develop our leadership ability, have an awareness around that, and commit some time to it. And John's theory on leadership, and I happen to subscribe to it, is that leadership is not a born thing. It is a skill that can be developed. And it takes time. If we're going to develop it, it takes time. We've got to take the time to invest. This is, with the recent events just the last few days, again, I mean, it's every community needs strong leadership. Every business needs strong leadership. And I hope that you see the benefits of leadership for you and your business as we walk through this. So, other thing is, as people are getting on here, certainly don't want this to be a Brad Knowles show if we can avoid it. Yeah, Richter, so that's you. You got to hop on, buddy. So please, any questions, any comments as we go through this, experiences that you've had, if we're talking about something and it's not sticking or whatever, just either throw it in the chat if you're more comfortable there or unmute and let's just get into the conversation. So, all right, so Developing Leader Within 2.0. There's 10 sections of this. Most of the days we'll do one. We'll have a couple of sessions where we do two. We're meeting Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's for about an hour. Is that correct, Jim? Great. We won't run an hour if we've gotten through the material, handled the questions, and are ready to wrap up. So we won't do an hour just to do an hour. We'll do an hour as long as it's effective. So today we're going to go through just number one, and the number one is definition of leadership. The definition of leadership, which John says is influence, very simply, right? And John says it this way: everything rises and falls on leadership. The world becomes a better place when people become better leaders. The world becomes a better place when people become better leaders. It will add to your effectiveness. Now think about this in terms of the impact on your business. As you develop as a leader, it will add on your effectiveness, subtract from your weaknesses, divide your workload, and multiply your impact. So who wouldn't want that is my question. Again, add to your effectiveness, subtract from your weaknesses, and boy, don't I have a lot of subtracting to do. Divide from your workload and multiply your impact. So many things tied just from growing and developing as a leader. So many people don't develop as a leader, and because they come with some assumptions. So if you're going to take notes, these are some of the notes that I would have you take, okay? So first off, why do people not develop as leader? Why do they choose not to? Get out our trusty pen, here we go. First off, number one, I'm not a born leader, so I can't lead. I'm not a born leader, so I can't lead. That's an assumption people bring to leadership. And the reality is leaders are not born. Leadership can be developed and improved by anyone willing to put in the effort. And I would just ask you, has there ever been a time in your life where you grew because of education, mentorship, coaching, training, situational, that you grew, that you stepped up and grew as a leader? Have you ever experienced that? Rick, you're nodding your head, so I'm going to call on you, buddy. Can you give us a quick example?
I think for me, I'm fairly new to real estate, 4.5 years. So really not that new, but still newer. Mm-hmm. And the number of people that helped me get to where I am in life, I think I'm becoming a leader to a lot of the newer agents, mm-hmm. And I'm doing some coaching. So, mm-hmm. Kind of pushes me into that leadership position. I was a leader in high school and college. Now I'm becoming a leader in my work life.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and experience and time and a willingness. I mean, you definitely bring a willingness to the table to share and to pour into others. So, right. So you've experienced it. You've experienced leadership development throughout your life. I love it. Yeah. Number two, a title in seniority will automatically make me a leader. So if I don't have that, maybe I'm kind of holding back at this moment on the leadership side. And again, John says, becoming a good leader requires desire and some basic tools. It doesn't require title or seniority, right? It requires desire and some basic tools, right? In the world of Keller Williams with the ALC, I always find is a good example. And I don't know if you've experienced this, Jen, but what I'm looking for in ALC members in a Keller Williams Market Center is not somebody who's going to start leading because they now have the title of ALC. I'm looking for somebody who's a leader that I can recognize with the title of ALC, right? Two very different, and we're going to dig a little bit more into that here in a minute. Number three, work experience will automatically make me a better leader. And John's point on this, I love. Leadership is like maturity. It doesn't automatically come with age. Leadership is like maturity. It does not automatically come with age, right? We have to spend time on it. It's not an automatic thing. And lastly, why do people resist leadership development? I'm waiting until I get a position to start developing as a leader. And John Wooden says to that point, when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. When opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. So just on this first section, was there anything that hit you in terms of, man, that sounds a little like me, maybe now or in a past life? Any part of that resonate with you? David, go ahead.
What they teach you in an MBA program on leadership.
And look at the money you're saving, David. Look at the money you're saving.
I've already spent that money.
Oh, darn it! Darn it! If only we'd gotten to you sooner, buddy. Yeah. Mr. Sobel, what do you got?
Well, didn't we always hear, stop getting ready to get ready?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be a leader, it should be, walk the walk from the beginning. Do do it as you should do it, and the leadership will come.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of, I don't know if any of you guys are a fan, but comedian and writer Tina Fey. A lot of especially young women will go up to Tina and go, man, I want to do what you've done. I really want to be a writer. And her answer is like, well, what are you waiting for? Like, nobody's going to show up in your life and say, hey, would you please start writing? Right? If you want to develop this leadership piece, start engage in these conversations, engage in the stuff that's out there. Yeah, believe me, there is a committee in your town that is a non-elected role that needs leadership help right now. I've never been in a town that didn't have that, right? I promise you, there right now, Jen, right now, as far as I know, there are 200 team leader roles available across Keller Williams. 200. You want an opportunity to flex that leadership muscle? Yeah. There's plenty of need for leadership, right? So how do we go about developing the leader within? So first off, we've got to have some insights about influence. Because if leadership is influence, then we've got to spend some time really understanding, well, what the heck does that mean? What does influence mean, right? So first off, we've got to have an appreciation and acceptance that everyone influences someone else. Everyone influences someone else. No one is excluded from being both a leader and a follower, right? I mean, I got to tell you this, Gary put out that email overnight. Did everybody see Gary Keller's email? Very powerful, talking about what's going on in the world right now. I'm sorry, not the world so much as our lovely little dysfunctional country. I think it's a really important thing. If you haven't had a chance to read it, please do. I can tell you after reading that email, Gary was able to verbalize some of the things that I've not been able to verbalize. And so I know in many ways in my life, I'm picking up that flag and carrying that, following his leadership in that area, right? So we all are going to be leading and following. You're influencing people, I promise, right? In fact, one of the things I remember having a conversation with an OP I worked with, Jen, and was always good about showing up to classes, right? We'd have a class and I'd be teaching something and they would show up to that class, but inevitably they'd be working on their phone, right? Yeah. So who are they giving permission to work on their phone? Everybody, right? So after a few classes, I pulled them aside and I said, hey, I love you being here. Do me a favor. If you're going to be here. Or don't be here and go work on your phone. Nothing like having one of those conversations with your boss, right? Good times. So we're all going to influence. So he puts it this way too. If you put effort into developing yourself as a leader, you have the potential to influence more people and to do so in a more significant way, right? So if you work to grow in this leadership piece, it isn't a question about whether you're going to influence people. You will. You're going to influence more. You're going to have a broader impact. That impact is probably going to go deeper. So keep that in mind. Number 2, on insights around influence, we don't always know how or who we influence. We don't always know that. So understand that you're kind of going to be always being watched, right? We're always being watched. I can promise you, after the first time I took Bold back whenever, about 10 years ago at this point, I had a realization just as a team leader that I was the second Bold coach in the room. In other words, if the eyes weren't on the Bold coach, there were a lot of those eyes that were now on me. So when the Bold coach asked, hey, it's time to start making calls, am I setting the right example by going and doing those calls, right? Even if I give permission to one person to goof off, we've compounded the negative impact of me goofing off. Or if I inspired just one more person to go, hey, you know what? If Brad can do it, I can do it too. Great. We've compounded the positive as well. Number 3, the best investment in tomorrow is to develop your influence today. Your best investment in tomorrow is develop your influence today. If you have the desire to accomplish something, you will be in a better place to do it if others are willing to help. Another way, the bumper sticker version is, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, take others with you. So where do you want to go with your business? Do you want to go fast and shallow, or do you want to go far and deep? That's a serious question I think a lot of people have to wrestle with. Where do you want to go with it? How big of an impact do you want to have, right? When you look in the mirror, do you say, hey, that's a person who's going to do a better job for anybody in this industry than I am, than anybody else will, right? If we say, who's the best realtor on here, I better have 34 people go, I am, right? Well, great. How can we go far and deep with that as opposed to shallow and fast? That's what leadership is about. 5 levels of leadership. 5 levels of leadership. And this is where we're going to spend the rest of our time. John walks us through a progression of the 5 levels of leadership. And he starts with a foundational kind of starting point, and that is just positional leadership. Positional leadership. And I learned this 10 minutes into the team leader role myself. Was, this TL role is going to buy me a week or two. The title, right? And if I don't start showing up as a value, if I don't start showing up as a leader, then, I'm going to be hung up to dry, right? Like the title buys you very little time in terms of showing up as a leader. So the first one, again, is position, right? People will follow a positional leader only as far as they have to. Only as far as they have to. So let's take a look at what is the difference between what a boss does and what a leader does. And you don't have to write these down, but just kind of absorb this for a second. Just absorb this with me. Bosses drive workers. Leaders coach them. Bosses depend on authority. Leaders depend on goodwill. Bosses inspire fear, woohoo. Leaders inspire enthusiasm. Bosses say I, leaders say we. Bosses fix the blame for any breakdown. They apply blame for any breakdown. Leaders fix the breakdown. Bosses know how it is done. Leaders show how it is done. And bosses say, go. Leaders say, let's go. So let me just hear what you heard there. Maybe it's an example of when you were stuck in boss mode, or maybe you've experienced some bosses in your life, or maybe you've experienced some of that great leadership. Love to hear from somebody.
Brad, I know for me, in my previous career, I worked for bosses.
Yep.
Let me try to catch you doing something wrong and blame and go do it. And I have found, since being at Keller Williams, I've worked under 2 different team leaders who have shown me how to do it, and let's do it together. And it's a huge mindset difference. I mean, I get jacked up to go into the Keller Williams office.
Right.
And in my old job, I would be writing in thinking, what am I driving myself into today? I don't know what this is going to look like by the end of the day. Where going into Keller Williams, everyone's we used to high five, but now it's,
Don't touch me.
Don't touch me. It's completely sets the tone. And it sets the tone not only in real estate, but every other part of my life. Before it was, I'd leave work in a bad mood, and it affected my home life. Now I leave Keller Williams, or I leave real estate and I go home and I'm all jacked up because I did real estate today. So it's a total mind shift change working with leaders rather than working for bosses, in my opinion.
Yep. And I think another interesting thing is both jobs have challenges, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Both jobs have good days and bad days, right? But one of them I'm dreading going into, and the other one, either way, with challenges and and disappointments and this, that, and the other thing, I'm still excited about getting into it, right? I'm still excited about getting into it. Position is a good place to start in leadership. Position is a good place to start in leadership, but it's a terrible place to stay. So if you just started something in your life, maybe you just took over the leadership role of a B&I group, and you haven't really flexed this leadership muscle before. Hey, that's okay, right? Positional leadership is a good place to start. We just don't want to live there for very long, right? We got to move on from it quickly. Okay? So a couple of things to be aware of on positional leadership. Positional leaders look for security based on title more than talent, right? They want to retain that title as opposed to grow in the talent side. Another point, positional leaders rely on their leader's influence instead of their own, right? So many times it's the positional leader's leader that they're hanging on to as opposed to their own level of leadership. Lastly, positional leaders can't get people to follow them beyond their defined authority. And to me, I will just say, I find a thing in the world of Keller Williams like Red Day to be an exposing experience, right? When it comes to your real estate transactions and all that kind of stuff, the leadership of the market center you're in may have some influence because of position. But when it comes to something that is totally optional, like Red Day, how does your leadership inspire, right? And I'm not just talking about team leaders and OPs and MCAs. I'm talking about ALC members. I'm talking about you. Maybe you're on the culture committee. Are you getting people to engage in that optional aspect, right? It's just a good bellwether of how are you doing? How are you doing on the leadership front? Let's move on to leadership level 2, permission. Leadership level 2 is about permission, right? Leadership is getting people to work with you when they are not obligated. And I tell you, real estate agents, I love you, but that's one of the biggest challenges of a leadership role in the real estate business. You're not that obligated, right? No real estate agent, or very few, are an employee, right? You're an independent contractor. So almost by definition, out of the gate, the involvement with the local leadership in an office, it's optional. It's optional, right? So I'll share a little insight. One of the things that I always do for our all partners meetings is I ask myself this question. This is the monthly meeting. I ask myself this question, like, what do we have to deliver at that meeting so nobody would ever want to miss it? I'm never asking the question, how can I force people to be there? Right? I'm taking the ownership of what do we have to deliver so nobody would ever want to miss it? Permission is characterized by good relationship. This is where quality of relationship really shows up. People who are unwilling or unable to build solid, lasting relationships soon discover that they are also unable to sustain lasting, effective leadership. So what do your personal relationships look like? Are you burning through them? Do you start with a good relationship and then it gets shaky and then you kick them to the curb and that's a long pattern for you? That is a challenge when it comes to leadership, right? That's a real challenge. Now, here's the parallel. This is why I think it's so important for us to be talking about this. Real estate is a relationship business. It's a relationship business. Leadership and real estate are both incredibly tied to your ability to build and develop and keep relationships. Can you call somebody you worked with 5 years ago and pick up kind of like you never left off? Can you do that? Right? Great. If you can, awesome. Now let's not give it 5 years, right? Let's do those care calls all the time. Level 3. So again, initially it's title, right? It's positional. Level 2, it's permission, right? Permission. Now I'm getting people working with me because they actually know that I care about them, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if you show up in a leadership way with your clients like that, right? I care about you. I understand. I was just talking to a friend of mine, and she's getting her mom out of New York City, which means they're selling their childhood home. This is a big adjustment, right? But I promise you, the blood relation aside, that mom knows that kid cares as an agent cares, right? Really, really wants the best for them and is going to do everything we can. Are we bringing that same level of commitment to every one of our clients? Because that's what we're legally supposed to do, right? Putting their interests before ours. I mean, that's as leadership based as it gets. Number 3 is production, right? So we've gone from positional to permission to production. Now we're actually getting stuff done. We're getting a compounding effect of the fruit of that leadership, of the fruit of working together as a team, right? This is really where the rubber hits the road, okay? Not a lot of questions, I don't think, on that. 4 is where I find people get a little more stuck, though sometimes people get lost in the relationship building of a level 2 leadership, and they fail to get to the production side, right? I love how Mo Anderson talks about the culture of Keller Williams. And one of the things that she says about the culture of Keller Williams is we're producers. Like, production is culture, right? Doing is culture. Lead generation is culture. You servicing your clients is culture. So as you build and as you develop in your leadership ability, again, I go back to that example of, that small town that needs people to help out on the code enforcement subcommittee of the whatever, right? That's important for the town. And I promise you, they need somebody who's willing to step up, lead that group, and get stuff done. Get stuff done. That doesn't mean you have to do all the doing, right? That's not the point of leadership. All right, level 4, people development. People development. The greatest leaders do more than just get things done. Leaders become great not because of their power, check this, but because of their ability to empower others. Their ability to empower others. Leaders don't hoard power. That's what bosses do. That's what dictators do, right? That's not what leaders do. Leaders assemble it and give it away as fast as they can, right? Take it, right? They help somebody feel empowered and they go, run with it. John's got a bunch of things, and this is the last little chunk for notes here that I want you to write down. There's about 8, 9 different things that he says in terms of questions that you should ask yourself about developing people. And he really spends time on this one because it's pretty easy to measure whether you're being productive or not. That level 3 leader, right? I think it's also pretty easy to know, like, geez, are people following me because they have to? Or are they following me because they're choosing to? That's a pretty easy litmus test. If you're questioning it, I could probably call 5 people that you're supposedly leading and find out for you pretty quickly, right? But at this level here, I think John really spends so much time on it because this is where people get stuck. People get stuck going from that we're getting stuff done piece to I'm really developing people piece, right? I'm beginning to grow leaders within the organization. So we're going to go through these 8 things of questions you should ask yourself about developing people. One, am I passionate about my personal growth? Am I passionate about my growth? Now, isn't that an interesting thought around how I develop others? First, he's saying, I got to be passionate about growing me before I can spend any time growing John Eccles. Does that make sense? Number two, does my growth journey have credibility? Now, there might be some people on this call right now who go, no, Brad, I'm just getting going. Okay, I get it. Give it a little time. That one's going to maybe take a little bit of time to add some credibility to your growth journey, right? If real estate's the first career you've had and you're not really succeeding yet at that, it's going to take a little time. Get a little momentum going, right? Start stitching a few pieces of success together. But you can affect that trajectory in the next 3 to 6 months, just like that. Got to be purposeful about it, and you can do it. Number 3, are people attracted to me because of my growth? Am I beginning to attract people because of the growth, the change that I've been through? And now we begin to see why you put so much priority on it to start these questions, right? In terms of our personal growth. Number 4, am I successful in the areas where I want to develop others? Right? This to me is such a huge credibility piece, right? And over the last bunch of years, I think we've seen a lot of people try to put themselves out there as, experts at things, gurus in fill in the blank, right? And the reality is they don't really have much credibility, They're pulling $2,000 out of their bank account, spreading it out on a desk, going, look at how much money I made, and then piling the $2,000 back up, putting it in their bank account, and that was every nickel they had. Like, listen, you're not impressing me, right? Show me a track record. Show me a track record specifically around areas that I want to develop others in, okay? Again, that takes a little bit of time. Leadership is not an instant coffee kind of thing, right? It takes time to really brew it. And this is one, right? You don't have to be successful in everywhere, right? As Rick Dow will tell you, right? Because Rick and I are in the same office, right? Brad's not building, developing, and creating endless numbers of great personal trainers, right? Oh. Fitness gurus, right? It's not my forte. So,
not your strong suit.
Not my strong suit, exactly, yeah. However, that's also not where I'm trying to develop others, right? I will say this, if my team at Keller Williams was dysfunctional, that would be a real problem for me to be sitting here working with our top agents trying to help them develop teams. That make sense? So are you successful in the areas where you want to develop others? Number 5, have I crossed over the spend time / invest time line? And really what John's talking about there is, am I starting to get a return on the time for what I've poured into people, right? Because sometimes we could spend this time pouring into people and it doesn't turn into fruit. We aren't getting that compounding effect, right? The amazing thing about teamwork and leadership is we can get a compounding effect. In other words, 1 + 1 does not equal 2 anymore. 1 + 1 = 3 or 4 because of what we've done. Karen, number 4 was, am I successful in areas where I want to develop others? Am I successful in areas where I want to develop others? So again, am I beginning to see the fruit of that spend time, invest time line? And if not, that just knows like, hey, that's that next piece I need to be working on, right? Especially if I'm kind of checking the other boxes. Last 3, do I have a teachable way of life? Do I have a teachable way of life? How much of my life is luck of the draw type stuff as opposed to repeatable, if you put in the same kind of time I put in, you can get the same kind of results, right? one of the things I love hearing John say, I haven't heard it in a long time, but people used to come up to him after a speaking engagement like, oh, I want to do what you do, John, right? John Maxwell, I want to do what you do. And his answer to them was very simple. Then great, go do what I've done, right? Give the talk to 3 people instead of 3,000, right? Spend the lonely nights at the airport, right? Spend the hard days looking at a blank piece of paper, starting to write a book. You want to do what I do? Go do what I've done. This is repeatable stuff. Is your life a teachable thing? Right? Is it teachable? I remember hearing a story about, real estate agent who, they were married to a professional sports athlete. And all of their business was luxury, and it all came from that relationship. Well, that's not a very teachable thing. I'm not going to divorce my wife and go marry one of the Williams sisters, to turn around my real estate career. That's not a very teachable way of life. So are there things of what you're doing that are teachable? 7 and 8, here we go. Am I willing to be vulnerable and coach? Am I willing to be a vulnerable role model and coach? This to me is the, Diana Kokoski used to say this all the time, right? We all want to look good and be right. We want to look good and be right. Great. And as soon as you're ready to let go of that, you can start leading. I don't need leaders who want to look good and be right. I don't need that. I don't think anybody needs that. We need leaders who are willing to go, wow, I screwed that up. Whew, that one's on me. That one's on me. And here's how we're going to fix it. Here's how we're going to do different. Here's the adjustment to the plan. That's the kind of vulnerability that's needed. And are you willing to coach other people? Are you willing to help them work on this stuff? Last one, do the people I develop succeed? Do they succeed? This is beyond the production piece that we talked about at level 3. This is I would argue a more broader life success kind of thing. So those are some good litmus tests. And again, I think John spent so much time on that because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck between that 3 and 4. 5, the pinnacle. The pinnacle. Those who have led well and proven their leadership over a lifetime have invested in other leaders and raised them up to level 4 and have developed influence not only in their own organizations, but beyond them. Okay, this is a pretty high bar, right? Not only can you do this, can you do it over a long span of time, and can you do it in multiple areas? And that's really what John's talking about here is that, the transferable aspect of your leadership ability. And I shared with some people recently, and it was a good leadership lesson for me that I went through not that long ago, where I was talking to a buddy of mine who was also a coach, and just said with him, like, man, don't you wish there was some aspect of your life you didn't have to feel like you had to show up as a leader? And the example I gave him was like, man, I'd really love to be able to go to church and just, sit about halfway back and not have to do anything and just take it in and blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah, but who at church are you letting down because you're choosing not to do that? I'm like, oh, man. Yeah, it's an always on thing. Leadership's an always on thing. You don't get to be a leader just 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Or you don't get to be a leader just at home, right? Because the people you work with are going to see you on the weekend, or the people you live with are going to see how you act during the day. And it's going to either build credibility or remove all credibility. Leadership to me as we go through this, and this is going to go quick. It's just the next 2 weeks. We got just 7 more sessions after this one. Leadership, I would argue, it is the Bill Belichick role, not the Tom Brady role. Right? When the Patriots won in the last 20 years, the players, the Tom Bradys on the team, they got the credit. And when the team lost, there was the hangman coming for Bill Belichick. Right? It's coach's fault. The players get the win, the coach gets the L. The role that you're signing up for in leadership, just to be clear, is the coach role. It's the coach role, which means you're not going to take much credit for the wins, right? It's always going to be, no, it was the team, it was the committee, it was the group, it was right? It's not you, it's them, right? Because that's who we succeed through. And when things go wrong, you're going to take all of it. That's on me. That's all on me. Most people in our culture don't want to sign up for that. Most people in any culture don't want to sign up for that. I'm challenging each of you, since you've decided to take some time to work on this. I want to challenge you to sign up for that. Because that's where you're going to be able to have a massive impact on each of the people that you touch in your life. Somebody missed number 5. Mindy, I'm here for you. Hold on. 5 is pinnacle, right? A pinnacle leader is what we're talking about, right? Influence based on respect, focus. They focus their influence. They teach and encourage. They develop influence to advance the organization. Here's the other measure I would argue, Mindy, on number 5, pinnacle. When you step out of the leadership role, have you replaced yourself with somebody who's going to take it even further than you did? There's a subset of leaders out there that, and I shared this with some people this morning, there's 2 ways to build the tallest building in a town. One way is to build the building. The second way is to tear down all the buildings bigger than yours. I don't want anybody in the tear down business. We're in the building buildings business. A pinnacle leader is somebody who is going to lift somebody up so they have the ability, capacity, everything they need to build a building even bigger than I can build. Right? They're not afraid of that. And some of the biggest and best leaders out there still have that ego piece where they've got to be number 1. Whoever said that that's what life was about? If you're committed to others and their success, almost by definition, you should be hoping that you're not number 1. I hope the people that I coach outperform me. Otherwise, they should fire me as a coach. Right? Am I only sharing with them so they just do a little bit better? Or am I giving them everything in the hopes that they outperform me and graduate to working with somebody who can take them to the next level? Mindy, you got thoughts on that?
Kind of just like we do with our kids. We want them to be better, do better.
Yeah. I want, and you know, for me, one of the big words that I love is get them there quicker. Right? Anytime I've worked with a TL, I've worked with a few TLs over the years, and you know, oftentimes people step into the TL role, right? Mindy, you're in it. We step into the TL role and it's overwhelming, right? It's just so much. And so as a coach, you know, you're trying to unpack it for them and trying to help them with it. And sometimes you get those comments like, you know, geez, you seem so good at this, right? Like many of you, you know, you're so good at what you do now that a newer agent walking beside you can just be awestruck. Like, how did you do this? It's going to take me forever to get there. Like, no. Like, it took me 3 years to be adequate in the TL role. If I coach somebody in that role today, I want to get them there in 90 days. They got to be in 90 days where it took me 3 years to get. There's no reason for them to take the same 3 years to get there, right? So yeah, I mean, it's can you set your ego aside enough to have somebody else succeed further than you? Are you willing to support them at that level? To me, that's part of that pinnacle, right? All right, we've got a few minutes. I'd love to answer any and all questions that people have on what we've talked about so far or anything else that's come up.
Hi, Brad. It's Melissa.
Well, hello, Melissa. How are you?
I'm good. I'm sitting here with my children listening to you today, and I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Glad I watched my language.
But this is my, I mean, when you talk about the pinnacle and the next step and showing up as a leader everywhere, always, it is, Portland recently lost one of its great leaders in our refugee community today. And during this time, it just, the leaders that show up, I posted about Gary Keller this morning because of I was at a loss of what to say today. And he showed up for me.
Yes.
And helped me.
Yes.
And helped me because I made so many different posts and I deleted them all because I'm just an ignorant white girl who didn't know. And I needed that. And I was just so grateful for having somebody better than I am to lean on during that time. And that for me is who I look up to, is who I want to be. And for me, it's still a little overwhelming with all that I have to do in a day to show up like that every day. And I thank you for showing up like that every day. But we need it so bad in this country, especially now.
Yeah.
For everybody who's being watched, who is the leader, whether they want to be the leader or not, to keep showing up every day.
Yeah.
And
I this, Melissa, just for everybody else on here, Melissa's in our office. She and I actually live in the same town, so it's nice that instead of walking 5 minutes, we hopped on a Zoom. This is good. But you also know that I took a couple of days mostly off last week with the loss of my grandmother because I knew I couldn't show up. I needed to take time, be with family, all that kind of stuff. I couldn't do this and that, and it was just an awareness thing that I knew I was going to be walking through. And that's where I think it's so important to spend time developing on the leadership side, developing those people around you. Because without the quality of team that we have in place, I wouldn't have been able to do that. As much as I needed it, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But I went to one of our ATLs on, I think it was Tuesday afternoon, maybe Wednesday. It was Tuesday afternoon. Said, hey, I do this part of our morning meeting and and I don't think I'm going to be available for the next few days. Can you do it? Can you run with it? And she basically did exactly what I'm doing here, only for our office for 3 days straight, with the day's notice. That doesn't happen overnight, right? You have to spend a fair amount of time working together, developing each other, to be able to kind of shift like that. So thank you, Melissa, for that. Any other thoughts, questions? Jen, any other housekeeping we need to know about this? Is it basically the same link for all of these?
Same link for the next 2 weeks.
Great.
And we'll see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock.
Great. So tomorrow we're going section 2. I think Wednesdays will probably double up, and so we'll be a little bit.
Wednesdays,
not Wednesdays, excuse me. Thursdays we'll probably do 2 sections each Thursday. So because we wanted to get, there's 10 sections, wanted to get through them in the 2 weeks. So I would just plan on that. We'll be moving a little bit quicker, and these are recorded. So if you missed something, then you can go back to the recording. Those will be posted on our You too. Big thank you to Jen, because God knows I could never coordinate this. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All your friends, guys. We got to get more people on here. We got so much value, gold nuggets from not only Brad, but everybody participating here. So invite your market centers and your agents and leadership onto these calls. They're great recorded, but they're even better live. So invite your peeps.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Same time.
Hi, Brad. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.